The root causes and symptoms of thyroid dysfunction and how to actually start healing from thyroid dysfunction. Hi, my name is Megan. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner and functional blood chemistry specialist. And I personally dealt with thyroid issues, Hashimoto's in particular, for many years, and it went undiagnosed for years before that. Before I really figured out and understood the thyroid symptoms, real root causes, and then how to actually heal holistically. And I've been able to help many, many other people also heal from a variety of thyroid dysfunction issues. So let's dig into it. So, first, common symptoms, and symptoms can certainly vary quite a bit, but here are some really big ones that can really indicate probably want to start digging deeper into the thyroid and get some testing done. So, inability to lose weight or gain weight, it kind of either direction. The thyroid has a lot to do with our metabolism. And if you can't lose weight, if you can't gain weight, or you've suddenly noticed a major change in your weight without seemingly doing the things that would contribute to that, that can be a really big indication. Fatigue, chronic fatigue, like you have to sleep all the time and you wake up and you're still tired and you want to go back to bed and you're just tired throughout the day. Sleep issues. If you've got a lot of sleep issues, especially falling asleep, but certainly it could also be staying asleep, that can be an indication. Cracked heels. If you notice on your heels that your heels are consistently really cracked, not just dry. I'm not talking just like dry, but I'm talking like really cracked and oftentimes painfully cracked. If your arms are internally rotated, I'm not talking like just slumped over. I'm talking your palms almost turn out away from your body consistently. If you look at your nails, and you don't have moons. So if you look at your nails, you should be able to see little moons at the very bottom. If you don't see those moons across the board, that can often be an indication. And hair loss. If you notice you're just losing a lot of hair, your hair's thinning quite a bit, this is a really good indication. So now, when it comes to root causes, we have to understand that thyroid issues aren't always just a thyroid issue or dysfunction, and we need to really look at the bigger picture here. So the first thing I do recommend is getting a full thyroid panel. Now, this isn't just looking at the thyroid itself, but things when it comes to the thyroid in particular, you want to look at TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, TPO, and TG antibodies. Now, that is not a full and comprehensive panel, but that's a good baseline when it comes to specifically just the thyroid, but we need to be looking at a bunch of other things. So the number one thing we need to rule out is autoimmunity, which is why we run the antibodies. Now, those are not all of the antibodies that can be present, but those are the big ones, the TPO and TG, so thyroid globulin antibodies. So we need to rule out those are in a functional and optimal range first, because autoimmunity is a whole different ballgame. This is not a thyroid dysfunction. This is an autoimmune issue that is contributing to the body attacking the thyroid. Next, we need to look at nutrient deficiencies. A ton of nutrient deficiencies can really impact the thyroid. Certainly, the more common ones, selenium and iodine, can impact the thyroid, but so can a whole variety of nutrient deficiencies, which is why it's important to get a full blood panel to really look at all of these nutrients, zinc, magnesium, copper, the selenium and iodine for sure, among other things. B vitamins play a really big role. So we need to look across the board at nutrients and where are nutrient levels at, and do we have some sort of dysfunction imbalance going on? We need to look at chronic stress. So the thyroid shares an axis with the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis, which also shares an axis with the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So chronic stress plays a really, really big role when it comes to thyroid issues. So we need to look at, is our body consistently in this chronic state of fight or flight? Are we chronically stressed all the time? Do we have no way to manage stress? That plays a really big role as well. The next thing we need to do is look at liver dysfunction. So liver dysfunction is really important here, and there's a couple big things that come into play with the liver. So the first one is if we have pretty good TSH, pretty good free T4, but our T3 is trending low, considering these other two values, we need to first look at the liver, because a lot of our T4 is converted into T3 in our liver. And if we've got liver dysfunction and or gut issues to a little bit of a lesser extent, probably going to have a hard time converting that T4 to T3, which can be certainly an issue, which is not thyroid related directly. It's really about the liver. Now, the liver can have dysfunctions for a lot of reasons. I really recommend looking at viral issues in particular when it comes to the thyroid. Epstein-Barr virus is in particular a really big issue that can impact the thyroid. If you have chronic EBV, I'll also say this was me. This can really impact the thyroid, and you can end up with hypothyroid, more commonly hypothyroid or hypothyroid trending, and or autoimmunity of the thyroid. The next thing we need to look at is gut overgrowth. So once again, a piece of that T4 is converted into T3 in the gut. The gut can also contribute to all kinds of other dysfunctions, especially nutrient deficiencies. If you've got a ton of gut overgrowth, even if you're eating the best, the best ever and eating all of your nutrients, getting a variety of foods, if you're not absorbing all of those nutrients, that's a really big deal that we need to address. And last but not least, we need to look at trauma and nervous system regulation. And this is kind of twofold. One, if we're stuck in a state of fight or flight, that chronic stress, a lot of times that can lead to nervous system dysregulation. And a lot of times that stems from trauma, whether that's childhood or adulthood trauma. That can really make a big role on the thyroid. There's also a really big connection with the thyroid and childhood trauma, especially when you were told you were too much, you weren't allowed to fully express yourself, you didn't feel like you fit in, you had trouble communicating. Oftentimes that will lead to thyroid dysfunction. So how do we start addressing these bigger root causes? So after we figure out really what's going on, how do we start addressing these things? So a couple big things I recommend. So number one, a good multivitamin is a great idea. And this is pretty across the board, I generally recommend a good multivitamin for almost everyone. It's just super hard to get all of the nutrients that you need every single day. So a multivitamin is a good kind of cover-all to cover all of our bases. Really easy way to tell if you have a good multivitamin is to look at the back where all the nutrients are. If you look under folate or B9, if it says in parentheses where it's coming from or the source of that folate or B9, if it says folic acid, it's probably not a great option. You probably want to look at some other brands. Seeking Health Designs for Health are two ones that I typically recommend in my practice. The next thing you want to do is support your liver. Liver support goes such a long way for so many things in the body, including some of the chronic viral issues, including toxin overload, and including just that conversion issue of the T4 to T3. So liver support's great. You can do that through nutrition. You can certainly do that through supplements. TEDCA is one of the best when it comes to the liver in particular. But you can also do lots of lifestyle things, Epsom salt baths, rebounding, castor oil packs. These are all dry brushing. These are all really great lifestyle things that you can do on a regular basis. Next one is manage stress. Figure out a way to manage stress consistently, get your body feeling safe, and just make sure you're not chronically stuck in the state of fight or flight. And this is not only for the adrenals and the thyroid, but this also goes a long way when it comes to gut health as well. Next, we want to look at any overgrowth and viral issues and address those. If we've determined that we do have any of those issues, we have to address those. Oftentimes, our thyroid will not go back into an optimal state until we've addressed these. And last but not least, trauma work. This goes a really long way. And I'll say this was a game changer for me I got my levels to a good spot, but I had a really hard time keeping them at a very manageable and good place, especially my antibodies. I would just consistently trend a little hypothyroid, come back down, antibodies would elevate, come back down. And it wasn't until I did the deeper trauma work and really worked on my throat chakra and clearing that up from my childhood trauma that I noticed massive difference consistently, and it would stay that way. I haven't had any thyroid dysfunction issues in many, many years at this point, and this was a big game changer. So using your voice, speaking your truth, setting boundaries, singing, chanting, these are all ways that you can help work on your throat chakra and heal that. If you need more additional help and support when it comes to your thyroid dysfunction issues, be sure to book a free call with me. There's a link down below to book a free call, and I'd love to chat with you.